Baby, you know you tuned in to the real rush to hear this sweet melodious baritone voice. You ain't heard nothing like this since Barry White. Oh, babe, my darling, let's go ahead and start the real rush, babe. Don't you be hating on my melodious voice. You know you wish you could have such powerful pipes as I. Don't lie. Don't lie, Craig. You love it. What's happening, y'all? It's your boy J-Dub here with The Real Rush, and thank you for tuning in to our third episode here on YouTube. 3. Let's keep this ball rolling. Got a lot of ground to cover here with you this evening, this morning, this afternoon, whenever you happen to be watching this. Let's get on down to brass tacks. I did mention last episode that I'd have 6 new movies to review for y'all this weekend. However, The Happy Prince was not available for release as of yet, so if you were looking forward to that review, I do apologize. I should hopefully have that for you next episode. But I was able to swap that out for another movie that was in limited release that will be actually hitting wide release later on this week, so you get a little bit of an early review if it's not available in your area yet. So we're going to kick things off here on this episode with The Hate You Give, which is the new movie based on the novel by Angie Thomas. Now this stars Amanda Stenberg as a high school student who attends a prep school in one part of a city in Georgia while living in a low-income area in another part of the same city in Georgia. She does this for safety reasons. So it's because of this that her character feels that she more or less needs to juggle in between 2 lives, 2 identities, so to speak. Because she doesn't want to be too hood for the prep school, and she doesn't want to be too prep for the hood. But things come to a head when she witnesses one of her best childhood friends from her neighborhood get unjustly gunned down by a police officer. So that right there, this is not just a powerful movie to be seen, but it's a powerful story to be told, as it resonates a lot with, unfortunately, a lot of the tragic news that we see and hear all too often, especially within the last couple of years. This is another movie that will linger with you. It did the same with me as A Star Is Born did last week, as I mentioned. Same thing. After this movie was all said and done and the credits had rolled, I just had to kind of sit there in the theater and take it all in and just kind of collect myself before I hit the road. And even on the drive back home, it was still lingering with me. And any movie that does that, that means that it just did a fantastic storytelling job. It makes you think. Don't be afraid to think. It ain't illegal yet, y'all. The cool thing about, well, not necessarily the cool thing, but one of the great things about this movie is that it delves deeper into the goings-on of the situations that we do see and hear on the news, unfortunately, much, much too often. This actually goes into, what kind of effect is this going to have on the personal life of Amanda's character? What is it going to have? What kind of effect is it going to have on her student life? There's a lot more at stake than just what we see on the news, and this movie does a great job of portraying that on screen. So this is a very important movie to be seen. I would actually recommend that once it is available for digital and Blu-ray and DVD, that this actually gets shown in schools. That's how strongly I feel about this movie. That's how important I feel this movie is with today's, with what's going on today. It's also worthy to note that screenwriter Audrey Wells, who penned and adapted the screenplay from Angie Thomas's novel, passed away just a couple days before this was released, and her words are portrayed brilliantly on screen. So once again, The Hate You Give, don't miss it. It's currently in limited release. I caught this at the AMC Potomac Mills Theater last evening. But if it's not available in your area just yet, it will be in wide release later on this week, on Thursday night to be exact. So don't miss it. Moving right along here. Next up on the Real Rush docket, First Man, starring Ryan Gosling and reuniting him with fellow La La Land director Damien Chazelle. Now, everybody knows the story of how we got to the moon, of us landing on the moon. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, they landed on the moon! But what isn't quite known is, the years leading up to it. Now, a couple of the things they touch base on are pretty well known, but what they did a really good job is focusing on what kind of a strain did this have on the family life of Neil Armstrong, played compellingly by Ryan Gosling, and his wife as well, played brilliantly by Claire Foy. Honestly, I think Claire Foy just might be up for a Best Actress nod when it does come time for that. This movie is just a little bit under 2.5 hours long, but it didn't feel like it. It only felt like it was about 2 hours long. So any movie in my book that does not feel as long as the running time actually says it is, fantastic job. The lunar sequences were all filmed specifically for IMAX, and when it pops on the screen, it sucks you in. I haven't had anything have that kind of effect on me since Inception. So that being said, don't just see this in the theater. This has to be seen in IMAX. Spend the extra couple bucks to see it in IMAX. Justin Hurwitz, who also did the score with Damien Chazelle in La La Land. Great job by Hurwitz with this score as well. This might also be a score that's worthy of awards consideration. The cinematography in this movie is near perfect. The only thing that I had a little bit of worry about going into this was that it was going to be a little bit of a somewhat repeat of Apollo 13. That it was going to follow the same basic like story structure, things of that sort. But this does a great job of telling its own story. So, that being said, we have another instant space exploration classic on our hands. Will this be considered for Best Picture? It's too early to tell, as we still have 3 more months to go in award season, but this could very well be an early contender for that very award. On other awards terms, this, in my personal opinion, is a shoo-in for Best Sound Editing and or Mixing at Oscar time. So First Man, see this. Not only just see it, but see it in IMAX. Next up on the Real Rush docket, my most anticipated pick for the month of October, Bad Times at the El Royale. This stars Jeff Bridges, Cynthia Erivo, Dakota Johnson, John Hamm, Lewis Pullmans, that's Bill's little boy, that's right, and Chris Hemsworth. So you have a wide array of characters here. This takes place in 1969 in a motel that is actually settled on the borderline of California and Nevada, so you can actually pick which side of the hotel you want to stay in on, so that way you can pick which state you want to stay in. But all the characters that show up here, they're not all what they seem. They're not all who they're cracked up to be. So that being said, not only is this a superb mystery period piece, but this kind of reminded me a little bit of Identity with John Cusack a couple years ago. And with the narrative that this movie follows, it also reminds me of the Rodriguez-Tarantino collabo 4 Rooms from the mid-90s. This is another movie that's just a little bit under 2.5 hours. This is actually also the same running time of First Man, but same as First Man, it did not feel like it was almost 2.5 hours long. Job well done by the entire cast. Gripping story. Good elements of humor and shock and awe in it. But standout in this, Chris Hemsworth, who is outstanding as this Charlie Manson-esque cult leader of the late 60s. So if you think about that time period, this movie fits in perfectly. Bad Times at the El Royale, do not miss it. Next up on the Real Rush docket. Docket? We in a court of law? The new documentary Tea with the Dames by Roger Mitchell, who was also the director of Notting Hill. Now this follows Dames Eileen Atkins, Joan Plowright, Judi Dench, and Maggie Smith as they sit down as four of the most celebrated actresses of not only our time, but I feel of all time, because their performances and such are going to transcend into generations to come. Yet I digress. Now the four dames, they sit together from time to time, have tea with each other, trade stories, to tell of old times, and tell of laughter, and just have a good time. But this is the first and only time so far to date that the characters, that they've been caught on camera doing this. A fantastic film, great stories and words of wisdom to be heard. There were laughs throughout the entire audience that I saw it with. I think older audiences will love this movie the most. However, if you're an actor or actress, if in my case, actor, it doesn't matter what level of acting you're at, whether you're a budding actor or actress. I'm mostly closer to the budding part myself, as I haven't been able to, I haven't been discovered yet. Or if you're at veteran status, this is a movie to be seen for you, for us, I should say, because you get to see these four women who have been in the industry for almost 70 years now. That's almost 280 collective years of knowledge between these four women that they get to share with us on screen. So, very uplifting, inspirational, educational. Go see Tea with the Dames. And if you can't catch it at a theater, lucky for you, this is also available for rent currently on Amazon Video. Tea with the Dames. Next up, we're going to keep on rolling with the docket thing. Next up, on the Real Rush docket, The Oath, starring Ike Barinholtz and Tiffany Haddish. This is also written and directed by Ike Barinholtz. Now, Ike and Tiffany star as a couple. Ike himself is his character, I should say, is a political news junkie, and they have their families over for Thanksgiving dinner. Now, at the same time, the American government is instituting what's called a loyalty oath for American citizens to sign to pledge their loyalty towards the current president. Now, they also state that it's not a requirement for American citizens to sign this document, but it seems more likely than not that if you don't sign it, that you're gonna fucking end up turning missing. So, at the same time as this is going on at holiday dinner, Ike and Tiffany's characters are at conflict. Do they sign the oath? Do they not? And how will they feel towards other people, more specifically family members, who want to or don't want to sign the oath? Ike, as we know, was also on Mad TV with fellow Mad TV brethren Jordan Peele. Now, I don't know if you heard of a little movie that he did last year called Get Out, but between these two boys, the Mad TV guys are on point with their political satire as of the last, not even 2 years. They're killing it right now. Not to mention, the idea behind the movie, behind the whole storyline, it's not too terribly far-fetched given the current political climate. It's a dark comedy. It will make you laugh, but it will make you think as well. I think this is one that needs to be seen not just by everybody, but most specifically a lot of people who we see talking politics constantly, like all the time, like as if their name were John fucking McLaughlin or something. Which is all well and good, but I mean, if you're flooding social media feeds and stuff with that all the time, this is a cautionary tale because of the fact that it not only shows what happens when you let politics consume you, but the aftermath of what happens as well, as we've seen within the last couple of years, what kind of divide that the current climate is causing amongst people who were just fine with each other a couple years ago. So there's something there. So That's all I'm going to say about that, because I don't want to get too political on this joint, because I'm not a political person. Booyah. That's just being real. And that's R-E-A-L. Not the R-E-double-L. R-double-E-L. I can't spell it today. It's spelled right there, but I ain't looking over there. It's all good. It's all good. But yeah, The Oath. Definitely catch that. It's a limited release. Don't miss it. And last but most certainly not least, for the kiddies, for the shorties, boom, we got Goosebumps 2, Haunted Halloween. This follows two young teenagers who uncover another one of R.L. Stine's hidden books. They accidentally unlock it, and now Slappy the Dummy and all other sorts of forces of evil have been unleashed upon their city right around Halloween time. I was a big fan of the first one. This one isn't quite as good as the first, but it's okay. There's some humor for the adults, but this one's more for the kids. And I think the kids will be entertained by Goosebumps 2 without being generally too scared. There weren't too many moments that, now I did see this at an early Saturday night showing, so that means there were a lot of families there. There were a great deal of kids in the audience. I didn't hear any of the kids jumping or getting scared too much, so it seems like light family fare. So there you go. A pretty quick review on Goosebumps 2, ladies and gents. So that being said, before we wrap things up here, out of all 6 movies, quite honestly, I'm having a really hard time coming up with just one pick. Goosebumps, that's going to be perfect for families. Tea with the Dames, that's just great tales to hear. Bad Times at the El Royale, that's a period piece that is amazing. And then, most importantly, you got The Oath, First Man, and The Hate You Give. All 3 movies that have stories that need to be told. We don't have a bad movie in the bunch this week, ladies and gents, so I'm not going to try to pick one for y'all. I'm going to let you pick for yourselves. And then you can get back to me on this later on. Ha 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 ha. And speaking of the getting back to me part, if anyone has any questions or comments, go ahead and please feel free to ask them on my YouTube page. And if you're lucky enough, I just may answer your question on a later episode of the Real Rush here on YouTube down the line. So that about wraps it up for this week's episode of the Real Rush here on YouTube. Next week, I have Halloween, The Happy Prince, and Beautiful Boy. I have those reviews ready for y'all. But in the meantime, once again, if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to type those little things into the bottom of the YouTube page here. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram at JDubChampion, hashtag The Real Rush. Follow me on my quest with my movie check-ins as they occur. Thanks to everybody who's subscribed and viewed so far. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and do so, because I would like to go ahead and get rid of this ugly ass custom Earl. I want to get my own custom Earl. I don't want this ugly ass Earl anymore. But thank you for tuning in thus far. And if you can't wait until next week's episode of The Real Rush to check out your boy J-Dub, you might want to check on the USA Network around 8 to 10ish this coming Tuesday night, because your boy will be sitting ringside for the 1000th episode of WWF SmackDown, live from the Capital One Arena here in Washington, D.C. Y'all. So once again, thank y'all for tuning in to The Real Rush. When you head to the movies, don't forget, keep your lips shut. But other than that, have fun, y'all. Love J-Dub. Enjoy yourselves at the movies, and we'll see you next time right here on The Real Rush. Peace.